Amazon did not kill Toys R Us, and the real reason is much worse. Because what happened to this company is not a failure story. It is a blueprint. There is a photograph that circulated on the internet a few years ago that stopped people mid-scroll. It was not a war image. It was not a disaster. There were no flames, no wreckage, no bodies. It was just a store, empty shelves, stretching from floor to ceiling, under fluorescent lights that were still switched on, signs still hanging from the ceiling, price tags still attached to empty fixtures, the layout still perfectly intact, the aisles, the sections, the familiar color scheme. Everything exactly where it had always been, except the products were gone. Every single one of them. And something about that image. The lights still on, the structure still standing, but completely hollowed out. Hit people in a way that more dramatic images never could. Because this was not destruction. This was erasure. A company that once defined childhood for millions. Gone so quietly that most people did not even notice, until it was already over. The store was Toys R Us, and within days of that image spreading, millions of people shared it with a single caption. This is what Amazon did. There was only one problem. That story was not true. Amazon did not kill Toys R Us. That explanation is too simple for what actually happened. Because what killed Toys R Us was not a single company. It was a chain of decisions made by people who never once stood in a store aisle, but understood something far more powerful than retail: money and control. Stay with me. Because this story is not just about a store. It is about how modern empires are actually taken apart, and it begins in 1948. A young man named Charles Lazarus, 25 years old, returns from the Second World War. He goes back to Washington, D.C., the son of a bicycle repair shop owner. And like many returning soldiers, he is trying to figure out what comes next. But Charles is not thinking like most people. He is observing, and what he sees is something others see too, but do not fully understand. Babies. Millions of them. The post-war boom has begun. Families are rebuilding. Cities are growing. Suburbs are forming. A new generation is coming. But Charles does not see emotion. He sees demand. He opens a small children's furniture store and waits. Then something unexpected happens. Parents keep asking for something else. Toys. Not just toys, but variety. Options. A place where everything is in one space. Charles listens. That becomes his advantage. Because he realizes something simple, but powerful. America does not need another store. It needs a destination. A place built entirely around childhood. In 1957, Toys R Us is born. And from the very first moment, people understand what it is. Not a shop. A world. Aisles stretching longer than a child can see. Shelves stacked to the ceiling. Bikes hanging above. Dolls, trains, games, action figures, art sets. Everything in one place. For children, it was not shopping. It was an experience. For parents, it was relief. One place. Everything you need. By the 1970s, it is expanding. By the 1980s, it is global. By the 1990s, it dominates. At its peak, 1 in every 5 toys sold in America comes from Toys R Us. Over 1,500 stores worldwide, billions in revenue. And at the center of it all, Charles Lazarus, a man who built an empire from observation, timing, and instinct. But every empire reaches a moment where the ground begins to shift. And for Toys R Us, that moment comes in 2000. The internet arrives, not as a trend, but as a structural change in how people buy everything. Toys R Us sees it early. They launch online. They build a website. They prepare for digital retail. And at first, it looks like success. Until Christmas arrives. And everything breaks. Orders flood in. Faster than they can deliver. Delays happen. Complaints rise. Customers are frustrated. So, they make a decision. They partner with Amazon. At the time, it looks smart. Amazon handles logistics. Toys R Us provides the products. A perfect match at least. On paper. But there was one assumption. Toys R Us made. They believed the deal was exclusive, that Amazon would only sell their toys, but Amazon saw something different with a platform, and slowly, while Toys R Us believed they had control, competitors began appearing on the same listings, samey products, different sellers, lower prices, and Toys R Us was now competing on its own shelves, inside a system it did not control. In 2004, they sue Amazon, and they win. The partnership ends, but the damage is already done, because the real loss was not legal. It was time. 4 years of lost digital development. 4 years where competitors built systems. 4 years where the entire future of retail changed. And Toys R Us was not ready. But here is the important part. Even then, it was still not dying. In 2005, it was still making over $11 billion a year. Stores were full. Customers were still coming. The brand still worked. This was not a collapse. Not yet. It was vulnerable, and vulnerability attracts attention. But what was about to happen next had nothing to do with Amazon, nothing to do with technology, and nothing to do with competition. It had everything to do with a financial trick. So simple, and so devastating, that most people who experience it never even see it coming. In 2005, a group of financial firms made a move, KKR, Bain Capital, Vornado, 3 of the most powerful names in private equity. Between them, they controlled billions in assets and operated with a very specific playbook. They acquired Toys R Us for $6.6 billion. But here is what most people never fully understand about deals like this. They did not pay $6.6 billion. They paid roughly $1.3 billion of their own money. The remaining $5.3 billion was borrowed from banks, from financial institutions, from the same system that Toys R Us would now be forced to repay. This structure is called a leveraged buyout, and it is one of the most powerful and most dangerous financial tools in modern capitalism. Because the moment the deal closed, that $3 billion in debt was transferred directly onto Toys R Us itself. The company was now responsible for repaying the money used to purchase it. Not metaphorically, literally. And from that moment forward, every single year, Toys R Us paid between $400 and $500 million in interest alone. Not to improve stores, not to build technology, not to compete in a changing world, just interest. Just the cost of existing inside a structure it never chose. And it did not stop there. Because while Toys R Us was making those payments, the firms that owned it were still extracting money, management fees, advisory fees, consulting fees. Year after year, tens of millions more left the company before a single shelf was restocked, before a single system was upgraded, before a single employee was supported. Think of it like this. Imagine a world-class athlete preparing for the biggest race of their life. Now imagine their own coach walks onto the track, straps 100 pounds onto their back, and then charges them every month for carrying it, and then says run and win. That is what happened to Toys R Us. And while it struggled under that weight, Amazon invested nearly $14 billion into logistics and fulfillment. Between 2005 and 2010, Walmart rebuilt its supply chain. Target redesigned its stores. Toys R Us stood still. Not because it lacked effort, but because it lacked freedom inside the company. Leadership could see it happening. Gerald Storch, who became CEO in 2006, understood the situation clearly. He pushed for investment, technology, store experience, infrastructure. He argued that without capital, the company could not compete. He was right. But the answer never changed. There is no money. Because the money was not staying inside the business, it was leaving. Servicing debt, paying fees, flowing out. Every single month. In 2007, there was one possible escape. An IPO. A chance to raise capital and reset the structure. The plans were in motion. Then 2008 happened. The financial crisis hit. Markets collapsed. The IPO disappeared. And with it, the last real chance to break free. By 2017, the outcome was no longer uncertain. It was inevitable. Toys R Us filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And even then, the business itself was still alive. 1,600 stores, 64,000 employees, customers still walking through the doors. There were buyers. There were restructuring plans. There were real chances to save parts of it. But the structure made it impossible. Debt, competing creditors, conflicting interests. The system collapsed under its own weight. And in March 2018, the final decision was made. Every store would close. Every location, every shelf, emptied again, for the last time. 64,000 people lost their jobs. Some had spent decades inside the company. 20 years, 25 years, entire careers built in one place. Store managers, stock workers, sales staff, people who had shown up every day for years, helping families, serving communities, building something real. And when it ended, a compensation fund was created. $20 million, split across 64,000 people, roughly $300 each for some. That was the end of a 20-year career, $300. But the impact did not stop with the stores. It spread outward. Toy manufacturers who depended on Toys R Us lost their largest retail partner overnight. Companies like Mattel and Hasbro saw immediate declines. The orders worth hundreds of millions disappeared. Suppliers collapsed. Business models failed. Communities felt it. Those 1,600 stores were not just retail spaces. They were anchors. They brought traffic. They supported nearby businesses. And suddenly, they were gone. All of it traced back to a financial structure created 13 years earlier. Charles Lazarus died on the 22nd of March, 2018. He was 94 years old. He died 18 days after the company he built closed its doors. People close to him said the same thing. He was heartbroken. Because what he built was never just a business. It was a place, a memory, a feeling that millions of people experienced growing up. And he watched it disappear. Not because it was outcompeted. Not because it became irrelevant. But because it was slowly drained. Until there was nothing left. The name still exists. The brand was sold. The logo, the giraffe, the colors, they still appear. In smaller forms, inside other stores. But it is not the same. It cannot be because what was built was never just a brand. It was an experience. And that experience is gone. Private equity is not illegal. Leveraged buyouts are not illegal. Nothing here broke the law. But legality is not the same as consequence. Because this is not a one-time story. It is a pattern. A structure. A method. Payless. Sears. Sports Authority. Gymboree. Pier 1. Different companies. Same outcome. These were not just businesses that failed. They were businesses that were not allowed to adapt. And once you see that pattern, you cannot unsee it. Because the real question is not, is this company successful? The real question is, who is it really working for? This channel exists to follow that question because the real stories are not the obvious ones. They are the ones underneath, quiet, legal, and hiding in plain sight. This is Empires Untold, and now you know what to look for.